I think a lot of founders really just leave that on the table, and it's money that's set aside because it's just such a pain to get to it. So they just go after the next VC round, the next VC round, and keep stacking on dilutive. And since I've spent a lot of my time in healthcare and I've spent a lot of time in energy tech, these are capital intensive businesses. So those founders are exiting with a sliver of their company left. And non dilutive is just something that they really should be looking for.
You're listening to Founder Mode.
The show where we talk to people building what's next, sometimes by inventing whole new playbooks for how founders fund their ideas.
Today's episode is all about rethinking fundraising, how AI is rewriting the rules of capital access and leveling the field for founders who think beyond venture.
Our guest today is building the infrastructure for how founders who want to raise smart and not just fast capital can do it without losing control of their company.
Jason, we've talked about how capital strategy is evolving, but non-dilutive feels like the next big unlock, especially with AI in the mix.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just about pitching investors anymore. It's about building systems that find and secure funding while you stay focused on your product. Before we get Tim out here, Kevin, tell me about your non-dilutive fundraising strategy.
We're not paying people.
I think you can get in trouble for doing that.
No, in all seriousness, like we decided this time to bootstrap. JJ and I are just basically everybody's working for equity. And so it's like true founder mode. For the first year, we're just going to build the company based on equity and putting in everybody's time and effort on equity and putting in everybody's time and effort to see where that takes us. I think for two reasons. One, because it's, makes a good story. I think the other one is that with all the hype around AI and some of these mega rounds and crazy valuations, many times before even the first drop of revenue comes in, we wanted to take a more measured approach, right? Kind of to see, hey, what was this out there? Do we actually reach this product market fit? And more importantly, is it actually possible to bootstrap a B2B enterprise company in this model without having to go for outside investors, which is typically what I've done for the last 20 years. Jason, you watch a lot of founders struggle to raise, especially those who aren't building an AI right now. What are you seeing that works?
I just had a conversation with a founder a few days ago who is trying to raise and having a bit of a hard time. He's like, I'm going to send you the deck if you can make some introductions. I'm like, of course, yeah, happy to help. There's one thing I've seen work really well. Everybody loves to send the doc send link with the deck. Some people have their data room already ready and everything. That's all cool, and you can forward that stuff. But nothing is better, in my opinion, than seeing the Loom video where the founder has done the pitch, overlaid the deck so you can hear their voiceover and hear their whole story and hear their passion. There was a viral tweet the other day of a product person explaining the problem they were solving with their company. You can just hear the passion and the intensity with which they're speaking about the problem. I think when that comes through, it hits differently for investors than here's just another 10 slide deck of this is the problem, this is what we're building that solves it, and here's how much money we're raising, and this is what we're going to do with the money. We've all seen 100 of those. I think what's interesting is when you can connect it to but this is a specific problem that I've been thinking about trying to solve for 10, 20 years. And it's finally time. The tech is caught up. I can do the thing. And so that's one thing. That's a piece of advice that I literally gave to a founder the other day. And then, look, I think the other thing that, as a marketing guy, storyteller guy, I really value the importance. We were talking about this the other day. We were working on a deck together, and it's words and music. It's really important to have the right language and the content of what you want to say. Having the understanding that being able to tell a compelling visual story matters a lot. So make a great deck. We have somebody on our team that does just incredible pitch decks, and the difference between being able to raise millions of dollars for your next round or not. Should we get going and learn about how to raise non-dilutive capital?
Yeah, I love it. And plus one in the Loom, we have sent so many Looms out this year, and I think a lot of them, I use them for demos and things of that nature. It's incredible. And it was funny, in one of them, I didn't shave. And it's the one that everybody loves. Oh, it looks so raw. It is a very humanizing way to communicate over email, which sometimes can be sterile. Cool. So yeah, Tim's a founder, an engineer, an investor who I worked with at Instacart, and he's helping startups navigate the world of non-dilutive funding.
Yeah, he's using AI to make the process faster, fairer, and more accessible for every kind of founder.
Tim, welcome to Founder Mode. You've led product engineering at some of the most recognizable tech companies. We work together at one of them, and I'd love to sort of dig into how AI is reshaping fundraising and quite frankly, what that means for the next generation of builders.
Yes, thank you for having me.
We're stoked to have you here, Tim. Let's just get into it. What sparked your interest in fixing how non-dilutive funding works?
I think a lot of founders really just leave that on the table, and it's money that's set aside because it's just such a pain to get to it. So they just go after the next VC round and keep stacking on dilutive. These are capital intensive businesses. So those founders are exiting with a sliver of their company left. And non dilutive is just something that they really should be looking for. Like you're talking to 80 in the hopes that one will write you a check. So it's the same thing in the grant space. If you apply for one, your chances are going to be low, but it's expensive either in time or in money if you're trying to apply for multiple. So we've made the platform to make it easy for them.
And you've worked inside sort of these big growth environments before. What made you realize like this was the right time? And then more importantly, like, when people think about the timing of sort of going after funding like this, like, what does that look like? If I'm like, oh, I need to raise money, I'm like, I kind of forecast, hey, it's going to take a couple months. So I need to work backwards. Is grants in that same frame of a couple months? Or is it like, no, I need to think in like a yearly funding cycle or something different?
Yeah. So it's really something that should be a forever on process for people. It's called non dilutive for a reason, right? But it's kind of like raising capital. A lot of times I say it's more like a biz dev effort. Like you're going after these things, you can constantly just be stacking these one on top of the other. So it's something that we suggest as really a forever on process. What I would shy against is whenever we have founders coming to us saying, I've only got 3 months left at runway. What do I do? It's don't go the grant route. There's no guarantee, and it can sometimes take 6 to 9 months before you're actually hearing back.
What parts of the workflow have you actually successfully automated?
We've done both the proposal preparation. So we're helping you find the right opportunities to go through. We have 21,000 opportunities sitting in our database right now that are all active, but it's really hard to find the right ones. So it's just a lot of data to sift through and even find the right opportunity. But then on top of that, understanding what do I even need to fill out in order to apply for this? So we've really automated that entire process on the proposal preparation side. But then for anyone who wins, now you have a whole another problem to deal with because you're dealing with a contract with the government. So you need to have your finances straight. You need to have your reporting straight because you don't get like a $2 million grant opportunity. You don't get the $2 million in day one. It's tranched over the life cycle of your period of performance. So what we've seen is a lot of founders fail. They actually get awarded the opportunity and then 90% of it gets clawed back because they fall out of compliance.
What would you say are the areas that AI is not either figured out yet or just places where you're like, AI is not the right solution for in terms of the kind of life cycle of this?
Yeah. So I think a big part of it is on the government side of things. You have to register for a lot of very terrible websites and they need to talk to each other. If you have one incorrect thing, like if we put incorporated instead of Inc. on one portal and not the other, they don't match. And now all of a sudden you get rejected. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff you have to sift through. Unfortunately, the government today still doesn't allow non-individuals to go through there. So it's not allowed for us to actually build web scrapers or anything like that to actually automate that entire process. They have to do it manually.
Sounds like there's a market opportunity for you guys to go help the government side of this out as well, not just the applicants.
So we are working with the government on doing that because we realize there's only so much efficiency to be gained here unless we start fixing the other side. So the Department of War Secretary just announced actually on Friday that there's a whole acquisition reform strategy that's coming out.
Could you imagine compliance and reporting end to end in these processes, or will humans always have to be in the loop?
There's some amount of being in the loop because there's just an interaction between you and the program officer as they're asking questions and things like that. 95% of the compliance can just be automated end to end.
What's a story that you could share about a founder sort of finding a grant or finding an opportunity that they wouldn't have otherwise without your platform or having AI filtered through this sort of vast sea?
So a good example is the fact that we started this thing and ironically thought we're never going to be eligible for grants. But it's really hard to demo the software because this is somebody's core IP they're sticking in there and we can't be showing other customers stuff. So we put our own stuff in there and figured we'd reveal that. And it turns out we're eligible for hundreds of grant opportunities, and it's a huge biz dev line for us now. So we've now contracted with LA, Sacramento, Long Beach, and also the state of Louisiana. So there's tons of different opportunities that are out there for us in a huge pipeline. So we've actually shifted most of our outbound efforts away from companies, and we're focused almost entirely on going after government opportunities and working with universities.
That just makes me think of there's all the built-in websites, like built in Austin, built in LA, built in, where like it's basically a marketplace of all the startups and the kind of the tech scene in those markets. And like, I don't know, it sounds like Scout could be literally the layer that wraps around all of the startups in each of these markets. You've written about adapting to federal policy changes. What's the biggest risk or opportunity maybe founders face right now with R&D and climate grants and the kind of pendulum swinging of policy decisions and policymaking?
A big part of it is the packaging. So a lot of climate companies figure they're no longer eligible for opportunities, but that's because they're only looking at Department of Energy. The DoD is actually a huge funder of climate opportunities, a huge funder of healthcare, a huge funder of biotech. So if they're only looking at one agency, these things are cyclical, but it's also then in the packaging. And when you actually are responding to this, it is not climate, it is energy dominance, energy independence. That's the phrasing that you're talking about, and making sure that we have a secure energy future. And you're not talking about necessarily going after areas of funding for impoverished communities and bringing more back to them. You're talking about rural America and helping rural farmers and all of that kind of stuff. A lot of what you're focused on in your strategy is aligned with administration priorities.
Yeah, I think you leaned right into my next question, which is we've seen sort of the political kind of tide turn or waves turn. I think Doge being one coming in with the current administration and Trump. Like, how would a startup sort of position itself for that? Or is it defines its positioning and then you're really adapting the messaging? How do you think of that? Is the startup changing its vision or positioning? Or is it really just the way that you're sort of packaging and presenting that? For example, one of our companies is doing like AI voice in healthcare. Oh, okay. Well, now it should be AI voice in healthcare for this segment. If you're not using this model today, like what should you do to decide if it makes sense at all?
So in general, I wouldn't advise people to shift just so that they can align to a grant funding opportunity. We do see that a lot. There's also what are called SBIR mills, and that's all they do. They have no intention of actually commercializing it. They just go after the funding and then walk away. If I pivot because this investor said that I should look at my model in this different way, that could be something that ultimately kills the company. So we really think it's stick with your mission, what makes sense for you, because this administration is not going to be around forever. And all of a sudden you've built something that the next administration doesn't want. So what we've done is also diversified. So all of this change is happening at the federal level, but we also bring in state opportunities, local government opportunities, private sector opportunities, as well as international opportunities. I think a lot of times it's really just making sure that you're finding the right outlet, but staying true to your mission.
Do you see governments catching up with all these AI-driven tools, maybe with the kind of Department of War effort that you just mentioned, or are founders going to stay ahead for a while and be more on the cutting edge with tech?
Yeah, so government's definitely catching up. They're building a lot of things around AI today. And part of it is they have to, right? So that means there's half as many people to respond to proposals that are coming in the door. But with the advent of some of the large language models, people are just throwing garbage over the wall, but they have to be reviewed by multiple humans. So part of what we've done, and if we've actually deployed AI reviewing of inbound proposals to make sure that it stays consistent with what the agency is looking for. And that's definitely something that a lot of these are looking for. But Doge has actually really helped there. And then the Department of War, a lot of those changes as well have really advanced the use of AI within government.
You've built stuff at scale. How has that shaped your approach to fundraising tech? And is the tech that you guys are building, I'm sure there's some scale attribute to it, but how have you thought about that in terms of the type of scale you need for this business to continue to grow?
Yeah, I think it's about really being cognizant of what we're building and when. This is a massive product to get off the ground. An MVP is not hacked together in a month. So it's taken us 2 years, and I'd say we're still in MVP mode at this point. we can't do everything all at once, but where are the actual pieces that can turn into tailwinds versus headwinds? And where's the competition going to be 5 years from now? I don't think the competition 5 years from now is going to look like a new flavor of Scout. I think the competition 5 years from now are going to be the foundation models. So we need to be thinking of what is unique, what is different, what is a way that we can actually provide that defensibility for the long haul so that we don't get subsumed in a year and a half when GPT-7 comes out and it does a really good job of these things.
The good news is every YC company is a wrapper right now. So I think you guys are safe. When should a founder start exploring this non-dilutive kind of option instead of just going straight into traditional equity rounds?
I actually think it's something to do before traditional equity round, if you can. And the reason I say that is investors really like the fact that, one, you now have external validation that what you're working on is interesting, because these agencies are looking for the same thing investors are looking for: a big market, a good team, a good product, good execution that's already providing that external validation that this is a great thing to be looking at. The second thing I think it does is it shows people you're being creative with capital. So you're not just looking for a check that you're going to light on fire in 6 months. You're going to be very disciplined about how you're spending your money and making sure that you're building a sustainable company that will last as well.
What's one lesson from your early product career that you now apply to fundraising? And is that something that still holds true?
Yeah, I would say it goes back to being disciplined. We're taking on a lot as a very small team, as a company that's only been around for 2 years. We're working with companies, universities, governments, and building on both sides of the table. So we need to be very clear on what makes sense and why and when. The only reason we've really taken on a lot of the work we've done on the government side is because time is of the essence. Time is in our favor now because all of these movements within Department of War are in our favor now. But if we wait for 3 years to start deploying those types of things, somebody else is going to get these contracts. These contracts are 5 years long. So we've missed the boat at that point. So I think it's really like a couple things. One is really understanding the market and having a pulse on the market very deeply and not just going into a hole and only thinking about ourselves. Um, and making sure that we're being smart as we adjust to the trends in the market as well.
How do you think founders can balance chasing capital with also staying true to their mission?
Yeah, we really say all the time that you really don't want to go in it. This should be funding something that is already on your product road. That's what grants are for. If you are stretching what you do so much that you're just moving this product into a different direction, it could be the death of the business in the future, because now all of a sudden you have a skeleton of a whole bunch of different things that are happening underneath the hood, and there's no cohesiveness to the product. So we want to make sure that if it's on your product roadmap, that's what you're pitching, and you're not just evolving it to the needs of the solicitation.
Looking out, say like 5 years, do you think AI agents will play a role in pitching or negotiating on behalf of the founders, and not just for grants, but maybe even VC? Because I could imagine that at some point, like this kind of idea converges of acting as my capital agent.
I definitely think so. I think there's already flavors of that happening today. There's definitely, I mean, look, we're giving you an AI review before you submit your proposal, but we're also AI reviewing it on the other side.
Yeah.
So there's definitely ways that it's happening already. And I do actually think it can happen within the private sector market too, in venture. Big reason we started Scout is because I found too many founders are either ignoring non-dilutive funding, or they're only going after non-dilutive funding and never actually build their business. But the same is true oftentimes with investors, right? Frankly, I don't think a founder CEO should be spending 90% of their time talking to investors. I think they should be spending 10% of their time talking to investors, but it's not that way today. So we really built this because we want to keep those impactful people focused on their mission. But I think the same needs to happen within the venture market too.
Tim, where do you see equity and non-dilutive capital kind of coexisting in the future? Are they the same coin? What's the balance going to be down the line?
I think they still coexist. There's a huge benefit to having a great investor on your cap table. They're helping us with hiring. They're helping us with customers. They're helping us with more investment as we need it. So there's just so many great ways that those investors can be helpful. But I do think that the founders that run into the issue are the ones that just only stay on the treadmill and feel like now they just have to take any check that's coming in the door. Because once you start getting into the A's and the B's of the world, Now, all of a sudden, you don't necessarily have those investors who are on your side. So now they can be even more distracting than just during the actual fundraising process.
Somewhat semi self-serving question. If I'm running a startup today, I'm a founder. How do I know that I should go use even something like Scout? Is there like an easy mode where I'm like, I just drop in my website or define like the ChatGPT version of my business and just be like, is this even something that I should even try to go apply for? Of the 21,000 things that you're aware of, is there like a sniff test of, yeah, man, there's like a couple thousand that would make sense, or dude, like you're not building something that makes sense. So help the other builders out there that are just your chances to be like an ad for Scout. Is there a way that folks should just jump to your website without having to go through some painful sign up to be like, is this thing like right for me or not?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we built a fit check, and that was entirely the reason why, because we also track our success rates. We track all of that kind of stuff very closely. We don't want to cannibalize that either. We also don't do marketing. And the reason why we don't do marketing is because most of the people who will click that link are going to be people who probably are not a good fit. So we want to make sure that we're getting good people in the door and using the platform and not cannibalizing on the back half. The fit check will be very clear with you. And it was honest with you to say, yes, you're good to go, or no, you're not. What we built in the actual matching side of things is taking in information we already have on your business, pitch deck, or whatever it is that you want to give us. And then we match you to the opportunities, leveraging some of the algorithms that we've written in order to do that. So you'll see very clearly you have 50 matches that are available for you, or you have 0. Because we also specifically focus on more like high tech R&D stuff. We're not focused on some of the grants that are out there. A mom and pop storefront in San Francisco that has graffiti and wants it removed and can get a $2,000 grant. So we'll be very clear with people like what should and should not make sense for them.
Tim, this is super helpful. So if folks want to get in touch with you, where can they find you on social media? Where can they go get more information about Scout? Any special offers for Founder Mode listeners? Check you guys out.
So special offers will give anyone who's coming in from Founder Mode 20% off for the year. And then just find us on scoutgrants.ai. We'd be happy to have you join the platform.
Great.
Awesome.
So scoutgrants.ai. And where should folks mention Founder Mode? Who should they reach out to? How should they get in touch to say they heard about you from here?
Yeah, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I deleted all of my other social media stuff because we do business with the government.
Dude, Tim, this has been insightful, man. This is super cool. And I'll be honest, until I knew that you started this company, I had no idea. I knew grants, but I always think of that as the Peace Corps, somebody going to do volunteer stuff for Habitat for Humanity, and never thought of like tech companies playing in this space. So it's been enlightening to talk through this with you.
Yeah, we've run into that quite a bit. And actually, so our biggest advocates are VCs. So they're pushing our entire portfolio to us. And that just really begins like the education moment for founders, realizing that you don't have to be a nonprofit and there's trillions of dollars in grants out there that they're eligible for.
Awesome. Thanks, brother. Appreciate you coming out.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
That was awesome. I literally had no idea you could get a grant for your startup before I talked to Tim about this earlier. And so it's super cool to see that come to life. And as soon as we're done recording, I'm going to go do a fit check on one of my companies and just see if we match.
That was super cool. I like the double-sided marketplace approach where AI can solve the kind of application process for grants and also help local, state, and federal governments use AI better to effectively process them. What were your top 5, Kevin?
Yeah. The key takeaways today, it's non-dilutive grants are underutilized, right? I think especially with capital intensive sectors, grants require long timelines. So bad option for emergency runway or trying to make payroll next week. AI really can automate that discovery, compliance, and also the government side to actually review and process which ones are the best fit. And then packaging and alignment with shifting administration, right? As different political parties come in or different sort of priorities, really understanding what is it going to take to get success. And then Scout's funding fit check filters for founders, right? It really surfaces those high fit opportunities to find the things that could be a good match for what you're building.
Yeah, this is a good one. If this episode really changed how you think about fundraising, share it with a founder that's navigating their next raise.
These are the stories that show what's really working in modern entrepreneurship. That's it for today. Because raising capital is changing fast. The best founders are already adapting.